Hey everybody, it's Julian from the Booyah Kids.
This is Aiden.
And we're here at your guys' request to break down the production and mixing for Best Friend, single we put out recently. It's just me and Aiden today, but I think we should probably cut in, just to begin, Emma with a little interlude on how the song came to be, the original track, the rewriting with me and Emma. But here you go. Here is Emma with all of that info.
So Best Friend came from a batch of writing called 40 Minute Pop, which was a practice that Julian and I were doing last summer into the fall, where he sent me, we were doing this writing at the time, and I was kind of getting, second guessing myself as we were in these sessions, just like practicing writing again. And I was second guessing myself, so he was like, why don't we try this? Or like, I send you, like loops or beats, and you write on your own, spend no longer than 40 minutes on each song, to alleviate this doubt that I was having, and then also to kind of mirror the situation of Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, knowing that came from a splice loop, and wanting to be like, okay, if you just commit, you can start from whatever and make this song. So the beat was this kind of like big reverbed snare, watery situation, and I kept thinking about goldfish and sort of seeing this fish in a body of water, even though that's not really, I don't even know where you don't find goldfish in a creek. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just kept seeing this like goldfish in a creek, like standing over it and being like, no matter what people tell you, that you don't have a good memory, and you're this like silly little fish, like you're my best friend, I believe in you, you can do anything. That's kind of what the song became, or what the song is. And when we got back together to look at these songs, I think the biggest change that happened was, one, he had a keyboard, we took it out of the box and was re-harmonizing it. And also the post-chorus, oh, you're my best friend, was originally just like oh and ah, and didn't have that kind of callback best friend, or like tag, whatever, mantra, da-da. But that's ultimately what changed it from being called Goldfish to Best Friend. And yeah, they made a beautiful track that sort of elevated the song out of this original just sketch. There you go.
Cool. Well, that was very interesting and informative from Emma. Thank you. Let's just walk through track by track how this went down. This might be a slightly longer video just because I mixed and mastered this one as well. So we're just going to go track by track and look at every plugin and see what happened. So here's the song. Here's the Logic project. Pretty simple. I guess let's start with the drums. If you hit to the chorus, this is when all the drums start happening. If we loop the chorus, we can start with the kick. Sounds like this. And this is the Addictive Drums Vintage Dry Natural Punch preset. Playing a nice little pattern. And plugin wise, we got FabFilter Saturn doing some saturation on the gentle transformer setting and boosting some low end. Then after that, we've got the Pro Q4. Looks like, a little high, a low cut, some low end boost, carving out some low mids and adding some presence. We can hear that before and after. So here's without the Saturn and the EQ. Put on the Saturn. Put on the EQ. So nothing on So just subtle moves, trying to bring out some more mid-range and punch from the kick.
And more saturation with the Pro Q as well.
Exactly. I've got my Pro Q on the warm setting always. Next up is the snare. Very simple snare drum, giving kind of a lot of weight. So this is the natural punch preset on the vintage dry and addictive drums as well. And we got Saturn with the warm tape setting, a little bit of drive, no EQ, a little bit of dynamics, or maybe that's the preset, I don't know. Followed by a little bit of Pro Q, just boosting kind of some upper lows. Sometimes snares need a little higher. You can see moves that I didn't end up doing. So everything off. Little Saturn. And the Pro Q. So I feel I'm kind of adding a lot of warmth and low end to this snare, trying to give it more bottom and like mud almost. So if I turn it off. And on. Give it a little more of that kind of low thud. Next up is really, I think, what makes up the meat and potatoes of this drum sound, which is this break. It's from it's probably like a Logic loop in the vintage breaks. I think it's called Midnight Break. I'm sure I could find it. LMNOP. Midnight Break sounds like this. So I chopped that up, so it would be this. And then in the sampler, you can see I have a high pass filter, so no high pass filters. I wanted to get low end from the samples for that. So it cleans up a lot of that low end so I can have the samples for the low end. Next up, got some Saturn on the warm tube setting. Followed by Pro Q. Cutting some upper mids and adding some top. So I can turn it off. This is what it sounded like before. Here's Saturn on. Off. On. Kind of just wakes it up a little bit. And then Pro Q on. And off. On. Kind of cleans up the upper mids, gives it a little more of a sheen, a little more room. So everything off. On. Nice. So kick, snare, and break all together sound like this. I think that sounds pretty heavy to me. Next up, we got these two elements that come in the chorus. One is a tambourine, the Blast Chiller Bridge tambourine, probably another Logic loop. I don't have to find it though. Not seeing anything on it, sounds like this. Sounded pretty good to me. And a shaker. Very kind of not really a very long loop, but I just wanted something very steady to punctuate the chorus. This has some sample delay and some Saturn, so we can hear that with no Saturn. I can show the sample delay in context. So this is no Saturn, or this is no Saturn, on. Waking up a little bit of that top end, crushing a little bit of that transient. So altogether, if I turn off the sample delay, versus it kind of give it more of a laid back feel. This song is kind of, in my mind, chill. It's not supposed to be too much. It's supposed to be just very relaxed. And so you can see it with, there aren't that many drums. Not a crazy amount comes in the chorus. I'm setting back the shaker. All to just try to keep this very mellow in terms of, you know, the identity of this song. Next, we got some stuff on our drum bus. We got this Unfairchild compressor, very one, doing 2 or 3 dB. We got a tape emulator. This is a pretty very hi-fi sounding tape emulator on the Color 3. And then this plugin called Curves Equator, which is kind of a very cheaty kind of dynamic resonance suppressor. So without everything, it sounded like this. It sounds good, but I wanted a little more oomph out of it. So Unfairchild on. And yes, that does add level, but I think it also adds some punch. You can hear off. That isn't the most fair comparison, but I do think it helps. Then this tape plugin, off, on, off, on. So that's kind of just crushing some of these transients from the drums. I'm really squashing them. I felt as if the drums were too punchy. I wanted to make the transients a little shorter, a little more controlled. And so that did it really well, added some saturation. And then finally this Curves Equator, off, on, off, on. And I hear that kind of cleaning some stuff up in the mid-mids and the low-mids. Just getting little things here and there, not doing too much. You know, it can be a crutch, but sometimes it just does what you want. So this is all off. And all on. You know, it's a compressed drum sound. Next up, we got bass. Now, the bass is very simple, played by Aiden. Do you remember the signal chain?
Yeah, so starting with the bass, it was, it's Julian's bass. It's a Fender, it's like an 80s Fender short scale Music Master bass. Sounds pretty great. It's got a humbucker in it. Played with a pick, like a very thin pick, kind of like just doing like gentle attack with the pick, kind of playing kind of delicately, but then kind of later in the signal chain amping it up. So it's the bass into a Rupert Neve mono DI, into a Focusrite ISA preamp, and then I believe I did some analog EQ as well. So it's the ISA into the Clark Technic like Pultec clone, doing like a 60 hertz boost, as well as, you know, the classic, you know, boosting and cutting the low end at the same time, and then boosting some like 3K. And yeah, this was actually this was my second pass at the bass on this song. My first pass, it was a little busy, so dialed it back a little bit, just kind of embodying the kind of chillness of the track. And yeah, just doing full takes, as many as I wanted, and then because I like to do take after take after take, so I did all my full takes and then I comped it together, and that's how we got the bass.
It sounds great. It sounds like this. My alarm is going off. 1 sec. We can cut this out. So yeah, the bass sounds like this. Chorus, it goes like this. Pretty simple stuff. We have a lot of plugins on here, but you know, it'd be like that sometimes. So it starts out with some Saturn, doing the gentle saturation, followed by Pro Q, getting rid of some low end, adding some low end, cutting some low end. Generally just sculpting. I can probably just do these off one at a time. Actually, I'll go later. Followed by Unfair Child, a little bit of compression, setting 4. Followed by this is a Pro Q that's sidechained to the kick with a spectral band. So if I play this with the kick, basically the EQ curve goes down where the kick hits. So whenever the kick hits, where the kick is hitting in the low end gets out of the way of the bass, and I turn the attack on this to be the fastest as possible. If I turn this off, you can hear. And on. This really helps the kick sing through it and help. I like this trick because you can add more low end to the bass, and not have, when your kick and bass hitting together, have there be too much low end. Your bass can be bassy, your kick can be bassy, and when they play together, the kick just wins, and everything is good. Followed by tape J37, saturating a little bit, and then curves equator. So if I start at the top, see how I built the sound? Started like this. I'll turn this down. Saturn on. Really distorting it and giving you a little level. Pro Q. Giving a little more kind of clarity in the low end. I think both of these elements have, I think with these off, it feels a lot quieter, but I think a lot of that headroom is being taken up by so much excess low end. So I'm kind of saturating and EQing out some of this low end. Compression. Controlling it, you can hear it on the pick attack. Sounds a little weird in context, but it goes with the kick. That tape is making it sing a little more in the mid-range. And this is cleaning up some of the low mids. So there's the bass. So here's bass and drums together in the chorus. Yeah, so that's bass and drums, pretty simple. Off to all of the mid-range instruments. Aren't that many. I would say in the final mix, this ended up being mainly driven by the acoustic guitar, which is a double-tracked acoustic. Aiden, how was the acoustic recorded?
It was recorded with a Seagull acoustic guitar, very bright kind of guitar, and it was captured with a large diaphragm condenser, that mic being microphone parts. I forget the model, but it's a C12 clone. Nice tube mic. We've found that the pairing of the mic and the guitar sounds pretty good, or it's a nice sound. And yeah, just more full takes. All the overdubs I did on this were basically all full takes. Did as many takes as I wanted, and then did a comp of between all the takes. Yeah, that's the acoustic guitar. Yeah.
So it sounds like this in the chorus, or I can play it through the verse to the. I'll do this verse like this. So the first thing I did was high pass filter. So without it. With it. Just gets rid of a lot of that low end, which you don't often need, or it can be nice to have a lot of low end in acoustic guitars, but I didn't feel like we needed it on this track. Next up was Saturn on the warm tape setting, and I'm cutting some of what they call treble. You can soften on. And on. So that's kind of taming some of that upper mid and taming some of the transients. The goal with acoustic guitar is always to make it sound warm and bright at the same time. That's always the quest. Then we got a Pro Q4, cutting some upper mids, cutting some low end, I guess. Let's hear it. This is off. And on. Yeah, so that got rid of kind of like some of the, it's hard to describe, like hardness. There was like a kind of a hardness to it, and this makes it feel a little softer and smoother. So off and on. Trying to make it all feel relaxed and kind of very liquidy. And then we got on Fairchild, just gotta compress your acoustic guitars. And these are in independent mode, and so I'm getting on the bus. So off. And on. And yes, I'm boosting the output, but I'm also hearing the compression. I like how it sounds. I'm breaking all the rules. Then I also have this reverb. I felt as if I wanted these acoustics to be kind of feel a little more spacious. I can turn it up. Kind of just filling out the room they're in. So this is where I set in the mix, but if I turn it off, on. It just kind of feels a little more natural. The reverb feels like it just should be there, if that makes sense. Yeah, so goal with those is just try to make them sound a little more liquidy, more natural. Because we never hear acoustic guitars up close, you know. It's just not really how we hear them. So then we got this electric guitar. And then in the chorus it does this. And it goes with, yeah. So do you want to explain how a lot of these electrics were recorded?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly how each of them, but I think the
Maybe what about this one?
this one sounds like my yeah. So this one sounds like my Telecaster, maybe on like the middle pickup, going into there's kind of two parts, or no, actually like three parts to the signal chain here. There's my pedal board, which I have in the effects loop of this 80s Ibanez multi effects unit. So it sounds like I'm using a lot. It sounds like I'm doing a little compression probably on the pedal board, as well as some compression on the effects unit. But the main element here is the analog chorus and analog delay from the Ibanez unit, which I love. It sounds like let's hear. Yeah, you can kind of hear like the noise from like the delay, and then you could definitely hear like some wider stereo chorus. I love the chorus on this effects unit. I think it sounds great. But yeah, so just, you know, doing simple part here, trying to just not take up too much space, you know, but fill it out in a nice liquid, ethereal kind of way. The big liquid was water.
Yeah, liquid kind of water. So let's see, we got a high pass filter, 120 hertz. I have this as like my preset. If I load up Volcano, if I just want a high pass filter. Then got the Saturn doing some gentle saturation, followed by Pro Q trying to control some of this low mid. So if I just kind of play it from here, it'll make sense. So nothing on. Kind of a lot of low mids here.
These are all they're all DI guitars, no amps. I think that's probably a big reason why the low mid is there. Yeah,
but nothing processing can't fix.
Exactly.
So saturation on. And off. And on. Just absorbing some of that kind of low mid resonance, or that's the high pass filter, but it also has saturation in this one, and it got rid of some of the low end. Then Saturn. That's kind of tightening up the low mids. Off. On. Just a little more tight and saturated. And then the big thing is this Pro Q here. And off. On. And the reason I made it dynamic is you can hear on the high, the low mid gets really bad. If I just loop this chorus, it kind of really starts poking out on that high note of the guitar. So when I made it dynamic, it gets evened out. just feels a little more natural to me. Cool. So the next guitar goes like this. You want to tell us about this one?
Yeah, so this is basically like the same beginning in terms of it's the same guitar, similar pickup choice with the pick. I think the biggest difference here is there's no stereo chorus, and I've gone for a different stereo effect. I've gone for at the end of my signal chain, I've gone for the Behringer biphase clone. So I'm doing stereo phase, which is an effect in my mind is really dope and
it sounds great. Yeah.
Great, really watery. So yeah, it's not the most like outrageous phaser sound. It's more subtle. It kind of sounds like a chorus as well, but you know, I had a lot of fun like dialing in like the rate and the feedback for each the left and the right side, which I think is just a super cool vibe.
Nice. So let's see what we did here. It looks like the same high pass filter. What was this? Warm transformer? No. So this one is on warm transformer instead, and it looks like a very similar processing. These guitars are all kind of sound similar, so I may have even, like an idiot, copy pasted my EQ moves from track to track. So let's hear it with nothing. Kind of similar issues in that low mid, so on. Oh, actually, I was selecting the wrong track when I did that. That was an even bigger fuck up. Actually, the processing is this. So we got Volcano, same thing. Saturation, warm transformer, but EQ-wise, I'm doing something different. Let's see. Off. On. So it sounds like I was hearing a big problem in the low end with that low note, and then that high note were kind of going out to me too much. So off, you can hear the low note and the high note of the guitar are poking out and getting too resonant. So on. And these are like tiny moves, like not even 3 dB.
I hope, though.
I find if you hit the right frequency ranges, even small moves will have a big difference. I know that's an obvious statement, but sometimes if you're at the wrong frequency, and you can just be pulling and you're like, still 8 dB, I'm not hearing anything happen. And it's kind of like, maybe you're at the wrong frequency range. Although sometimes you need to do 8 dB, and that's great, but sometimes you don't. So we got this third guitar, which is only in the verses, and it sounds like this. Very buried in the mix. Sounds just like the same signal chain as electric guitar too.
Yeah, kind of same guitar, same pickup, kind of a leady part. Sounds like the same signal chain. You can still hear the phaser kind of going. And these are all stereo tracks, so I didn't double track anything. They were all captured as stereo on the way in.
It's very quiet. So we got a high pass filter, and that's it. Seems like I was messing around with getting sort of some low end. But I probably liked the kind of the washiness that brought, and it seems like I wanted to keep it low. So all the electric guitars sound like this together. With the acoustic.
Underwater vibes.
Yeah, swimming vibes. So we get to the chorus, sounds like this. Nice. So the next element that comes in is this pluck. Sounds like this. So that is the TH8 by Acoustica Audio. Ooh. Can I not close this plugin?
There, you try it.
There we go. So that is the TH8 by Acoustica Audio. Looks like it's a saw wave. It's kind of a simple sound. But I have two different takes that I did unquantized. So one of the sides is just like this if I take off the delay. You know, just trying to make it seem like I'm on an analog synth and playing stuff with as if it weren't MIDI. Then I got this H delay. It's kind of eighth note triplet, kind of a random thing. Just trying to make it seem like it's an analog delay that I didn't think too much about. So that sounds like this. Sometimes H delay can be really nice. And then I doubled that, so we got, oh, slip of the fingers. Sounds like this, then doubled. Nice. So then volcano again, just a high pass filter, trying to make sure that the only thing below 100, 150 hertz or something like that is my kick and bass. Maybe that's more superstitious than correct, but something I do. Then we got some saturation, followed by kind of like, sounds like I was having trouble with these upper mids. So let's hear nothing on it. So yeah, there's a real resonance kind of in that 1 to 2K area I'm hearing. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, I gotta fix that. But I did. So this is volcano. Off. On. Saturn on. Off. On. So in my mind, the Saturn kind of makes it sound like a little more like my actual Juno, where there's something with the outputs of Junos where if you turn the volume up really high, you can distort the output of the Juno, if that makes sense. And that's something that plugins don't really do. And so the saturation makes it sound a little more like an actual synth that has its own quirks. So on and off. Cool, and so then we got our Pro Q off and on. This is just making it sound a little smoother, leaving room in the upper mids so I don't have to over EQ the vocals. They can be warm and cut through, making it feel more sparkly in general. This sound is supposed to be kind of sparkly and exciting, and I think this EQ kind of gets there. And off. On. Cool. Next up is this kind of West Coast whistle sound. Very G-funk. Very buried. It's one of these elements in the earlier demos was much louder. And then I didn't have the heart to mute it, but you know, I just kind of pushed it really back, and we went away from the kind of more funky hip-hop version of this song and leaned a little more into the singer-songwriter acoustic side. So this is, as all good West Coast whistles are, a Moog on the triangle wave setting with some portamento. So let's see. It's probably quiet, but a little high pass filter, even though it never gets that low. Kind of idiotic move. We got this Mondo mod, which is just bringing it from left to right. Kind of, I want this to feel like it's kind of like an engine, or not an engine, like kind of diving, moving left and right through the water. And then the last thing to complete that is this reverb. If I turn it off. On. One thing I really like is putting time-based effects after panning-based effects. If you have something panning left and right, and you put a delay or a reverb after that, as the thing moves to the left, the trails of it are going to be trailing it. Because the delayed signal was in a different part of the stereo spectrum, and so it can give this effect of it's moving left with these kind of audio trails, moving right with these audio trails. Can be very kind of exciting. Okay, almost done with the mid-range. We got this element. Very synthwave. That's just copying the vocal melody, trying to support that and have it cut through a little more to make sure that melody is very clear. Sometimes adding an instrument that doubles the melody can be really nice. This is TH8. It looks like it's a saw wave mixed with a little bit of a square wave. You know, nothing crazy. It's a good synth. And I'm high passing it. This felt good to me. I didn't mind the little wonkiness of it, especially because I'm trying to help it support the vocal there, so I kind of want all those frequencies to fill out all the frequencies where the vocal may not be. And that's my way of proving to you that it's okay to be lazy, I guess. Last element, this was kind of a last minute addition. Emma said she was interested in something in the second verse. So I pulled up this synth, which is an emulation of a Casio keyboard, which is very Booyah Kids. Pulled up this preset called Cool Clavi, a clavichord, and played this. So not quantized either, trying to get those notes, nice brings up, trying to make it feel like kind of a underwater nature wonderland, with all sorts of harps and like every instrument, some different like fish, swimming this way, this fish has bubbles, kind of fun stuff like that. And I think this is cool. It spices up the second verse. Let's see what I'm doing here. I got Volcano as usual. Saturn on the warm tape, cutting some top end, and then Pro Q, cutting some upper mid. So let's hear the difference. This is nothing. Too many frequencies. High pass filter on. Kind of thinning it out in a nice way. Saturn on. That saturation is like pushing it closer to your face, if that makes any sense. If I turn it off. On. It's giving level, but it's also pushing it. And then EQ on. That's just softening it. This is off, on, giving it more of a watery feel. So here's all the instruments together. And then I can put in the drums and bass. Cool. And next up is vocals, but it may be looking a little different when we do vocals because we're about to go bowling. So we'll do vocals right back. Yo, so we're back. It's a little late, so it's just gonna be me. Our bowling and pool went a little bit late, but it's okay. We persist. I realized one thing I missed before this was walking through the plugins I have on my mid-range bus. So on all the mid-range right here, you can hear I have some plugins. So I have this tape plugin. If I turn it off, so off. On. Off. On. So I think that helps. It just kind of pushes the mid-range a little forward and ties it all together. I can hear it in like getting rid of the crispiness that maybe is a little too much in the acoustics. Then I also have this Curves Equator plugin, which is that dynamic resonance suppression. So we can hear this is off. And on. Off. On. You know, that's just, I think it cleans up some of the stuff that I'd want to get rid of, and I can just do a little less EQ on things individually, you know. If it works, it works. Okay, next thing we're up on is the vocals. Song, as usual, from Miss Emily has some amazing vocals. And let's walk through what it is. We can listen to some of these isolated vocals.
Found you in the water, and the water runs deep. Penny for a memory, but your little mind's weak. Take a breath,
Edited,
you can have
not overdone.
have it all.
Chose to go with auto-tune over Melodyne.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end. You're my best friend, I'll follow until the end. You're my, you're my, you're my best friend.
You know, that's a basic idea of what's going on. You can see I've chopped up a lot of this stuff to try to gain stage it super evenly. Yeah, so my general approach is find a chain that works and stick with it. This, I was trying to be pretty minimal on this. So the main chain is, we can hear it over here, is this.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end. You're my best friend.
So we start with an auto-tune. You know, I love Melodyne and I love auto-tune. Sometimes you use both, sometimes you use one or the other. I just really liked how the auto-tune sounded. I didn't feel like I wanted to melodyne it. It felt really good, and sometimes that's okay. So after the auto-tune is a de-esser.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end. You're my best friend, I'll follow until the end.
I love this de-esser, and it does a great job of, because best friend, follow you until the end. There's some, a lot of harsh things. This plugin does a great job of getting rid of them. Next up in the chain is the Pro Q4, and it's doing this.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end. You're my best friend, I'll follow until the end.
So this vocal sounded really good raw to me. It's Emma singing through a Sennheiser MD441 into an Ampex 350 through some Apogee converters, and that change of sounds really good. And so all I needed to do individually is I cut a little bit of low end, I added a little bit of top end, and then I did this kind of spectral thing, just cutting out little resonances in the mid-range when I needed to. And then after that is a little compression.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Kind of slamming it,
You're my
but
best friend, I'll follow until
it is a vocal
the end.
in a pop song. Gotta compress it if you want that sound. I mean, I think other people would disagree, but I like it. One tip, I like to keep this high frequency all the way to the right, keep to the flat side. So we can hear the raw vocal.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Let's loop this.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
De-esser on.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
EQ on.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
EQ off.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
EQ on.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
And then compressor on.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Again, this compressor is adding volume, but I know I like it. I know what I'm looking for. And so, sue me. I'm just kidding. So then basically every track has this. The only thing that's different would be this ha, which is that plus a Valhalla verb that Emma does all of her own vocal reverbs. So she sent it to me with this reverb. It's her own setting that she made. It's concert hall with a decay of 6 seconds. And I have the mix at 53%, so we can have, it'll be like this. And that comes here too. This is a little click there I should have gotten rid of, but it's okay. So next up, I take all those vocals and I put them through some bus processing. So on the bus,
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
got another de-esser.
You're my best friend,
I have another EQ.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
So it looks like I'm cutting some mids and I'm controlling some of the lows to just make them consistent.
You're my best friend,
Then I got
follow you until the end.
a little bit of tape
You're
simulation.
my best friend,
Then we got the Unfair Child doing some vocal compression.
You're my best friend, follow you
Now, my
until
favorite way to
the
use this on my vocal bus, I'm not saying this is the best way, is in mid-side link mode. So the amount of compression on the center and the sides is going to be the same, but they're going to be compressed separately. And so basically you're going to get the lead vocal up in the center is going to have its kind of space, and then everything in the width that's on the sides, the width of it, is also going to have their space. So it creates separation between the center and the sides while still tamping them all down together. So if something loud on the sides happen, those tamp down and the center tamps down, but the center will never be tamped down at like it. I'm not sure I can fully explain it, but I like it better than if I go to link mode.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Mid-side link.
You're my best friend, I'll follow until the end.
Link mode.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Mid-side link.
You're my best friend, I'll follow until the end.
So there is a difference in the amount of compression that's happening, but I'm also getting kind of a different stereo field. In the mid-side link mode, I'm getting kind of a tall center and then wide sides, where on the link mode, it's kind of squeezing everything and it's getting rid of the height to me. It has width, but it has no height. And in mid-side link, I get height. And then lastly,
you're my best friend,
got the...
follow you until the end.
And I'm realizing, did I not have any high-pass filter? Oh, no, I had a high-pass filter on the vocals. I was like, am I crazy? Okay, so let's hear the vocals, turning those plugins on one at a time. So raw.
You're my best friend,
I'm just
follow.
going to loop a smaller section.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
De-esser.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
EQ.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Tape.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Compression.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Curves.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
That might have been a little quick to hear all of it, but a lot of this was about kind of pushing it through the mids, make them all feel like one thing. When Emma's recording these vocals with lots of layers, I think the way she's imagining them to sound is not necessarily like you have a single vocal straight up the middle and then you have some backgrounds that are supporting that lead vocal. I think the way she's intending to do it when she produces her own vocals is to create this kind of chorus of different vocals, because we have these vocals.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Which is in head.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
In chest.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
And a harmony in chest. So I think I understand her intention is not one with supporting, but them all playing together in different parts of the stereo field to create one chorus. And so part of this bus processing is try to make it feel like one thing, where if something is loud, the whole thing moves with it, rather than having so much separation, kind of tying all those vocals together into this.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end. You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
Cool. And then lastly, we have this reverb, which is the same setting with a much shorter decay, 0.56 seconds, but I think the rest is the same. So I can turn off the vocal reverb.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
And on.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end.
This is Emma's vocal reverb she made, just a really nice kind of simple ambience that gives it that watery feeling. Okay, next up, Aiden cut some vocals on this song, and they sound like this.
You're my best friend, follow you until the end. You're my best friend. I'll follow until the end.
And then later in the song, he doubles up this.
You're oh my. You're oh my. You're oh my.
And those sound amazing with Emma and this lead here.
You my, yeah, my, you my.
Just has a really nice kind of strong sound to a lead. I love when leads kind of work in a little bit kind of you're not supposed to move in parallel fifths. Don't You Want Me by the Human League. I've always heard that. I guess I'm not exactly sure what's happening. But that lead in the intro kind of has fifths, and it feels very powerful when melodies kind of have parallel fifths moving. Not that it needs to, but it can be a cool move. So what's happening on this? Sounds like we got a very similar chain. So let's see what's going on. We got this auto tune again.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
De-esser.
You're my best friend. I'll follow until the end.
Okay, I think the interesting thing, and then compression.
You're my best friend.
A little less
Follow
compression.
you until the end.
I think I'm controlling some of these lows, and then I was probably hearing some sort of upper mid-range resonance I want to get rid of. So let's hear off.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
On.
You're my best friend. I'll follow until the end.
Yeah, I think the lows were too much for me, and when I got rid of the lows, there were some upper mid-range issues. There's still a little bit of harshness, but like I think maybe it cut, or maybe I just didn't do that great of a job, and I was like, it's good enough. Sounds fine to me in context, but I don't want to just pretend that I've done everything perfectly, but I've done what I've done, and I like how the end result sounds, and ultimately that's all that matters. Sometimes things have a little bit of resonance. And part of something I'm trying to learn as a mix engineer, not that I'm a very good one, is when things have resonances, when things have a little bit of this or a little bit of that, sometimes that's what gives them their signature sound. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean every resonance you hear you have to keep in, but sometimes things can be imperfect, and if everything is like still slightly imperfect, it maybe sounds a little cool, And sometimes if you take away every imperfection, you lose some of the interest to it. But maybe that's also me just making excuses for not figuring out that upper mid-range resonance. And then this is being sent to the same, I think a same preset. Oh no, this is being sent to a different reverb.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
I think Aiden set this reverb.
You're my best friend. I'll follow until the end.
So no reverb.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
On.
You're my best friend. I'll follow until the end.
And on. It just gives a little bit of a thing to it. Okay, then we got, similar thing, de-esser, J37, on Fairchild, mid-side link, on number 1. I'm doing a lot of the same things on this vocal. I can turn them all off and on so you can hear though.
You're my best friend. Follow you until
There, so everything off.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
De-esser on.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
Tape on.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
Compression on.
You're my best friend. Follow you until the end.
So I heard the de-esser kind of fix some of those S's in best friend. The tape really just, I thought that mid-range cut really well. And then the compression, it gave it that kind of height and width and made each of the vocal tracks more reactive to each other. So that is that is all the individual tracks. I guess now what we can go through is some of the mix bus processing, because how this came out of Logic right here is what the Spotify master is, or the streaming master is. And so I made sure that I had a limiter on it, and I did my best. So here's what it sounds like. So the first thing I have here, by the way, all these bypass plugins are plugins I tried and I chose weren't the right vibe. One tip is sometimes a plugin, or a piece of hardware, anything, no matter how much you tweak it, it's going to be the wrong sound. And so especially if you're doing mix bus compression in general, or saturation, it can be good to try a couple different plugins and see what is the right sound that you're going for. So you can see I tried out, I think maybe I'm done with this trial, but I tried out the L-Ray for compression. Thought it was okay. I liked it. I tried the Pwig Child. Settled on the Unfair Child. I was really into it. For my limiter, I tried out the L2. I tried the Pro L. I prefer the Pro L. So I got J37 tape, Arturia. I got Unfair Child. Some more Curves Equator. Pro L2. And a gain plugin. So my voice in this recording is more than even volume. So this is what it sounded like before any of the plugins. Very punchy. I kind of wanted everything to be a little more watery and work together a little more. So tape on. I think that does a great job of working things together. So we can hear it off and on again. And on. Cool. So then we're going to do off and on with a mix bus compression. So this compressor, I think it brought out, for me, it made it a lot more about the kick and snare. Before the tape, it was a lot about the kick and snare. After the tape, it felt together, but I lost some of the kick and snare. So maybe we're kind of accentuating the kick and snare together, also kind of giving it some sort of rhythm, some bounce. So off and on again. And on. Off. On. I'm probably over compressing this mix, but I think the difference is, for me, it's kind of like the sexy button. Like a certain compressor can give this bounce that kind of moves it in a little bit of a sexier way to me. It takes it a little bit less cutesy, makes it feel a little more like grooving, which we were towing the line a lot in this song, and I think this kind of gives a final push to be a little sexier. Next is the Curves Equator. I can do off and on that. So off. And on. Off. And on. So I think this does just a very simple and pretty solid job of getting rid of some muddy things. As you've seen, this is pretty minimal mix. Haven't done a lot. This is not the most EQ'd and fucked up thing, and so it helps with some of the resonances I might have mixed that are clouding things up. So kind of you can hear some of just things that be open up a little bit. So off. And on. I also hear the punch of the snare come out more. So then, Pro L. I don't see myself as very understanding. I knew a lot more about kind of tape and compression and EQ than limiting, but I just tried my best because if this is going to streaming, I need to have it be limited to reach a loudness standard. Am I checking my LUFS for this? No, I should be, but I know that if I hit a couple dB on the limiter, that it will probably be loud enough and Spotify will either turn it up or turn it down. Am I trying to smash the limiter? No, but I just know I need a little bit of a limiter. So this is my limiter. So just kind of catching some peaks. And what's nice about Pro L that I like compared to other limiters is that as it catches the peaks from the kick and snare, which is mostly what I find limiters do, it has a really nice way of making sure that they don't just immediately disappear, that you can kind of accentuate the kick and snare as you limit it. So we can go off and on. Off. And on. Off. And on. So I think it sounds pretty good. Always just trying not to destroy anything really with my limiter. Okay, well that was the breakdown. We went on through all the drums, bass, mids, Emma, Aiden, all the stuff, all my plugins. I hope you enjoyed, and if there's any other songs you want a production deconstruction on, more than happy to do so. For now, thank you very much and have a good night.